Hello everyone, welcome to our session this afternoon. We are really excited about some of the new data enrichment tools that are available now. So today we will chat about how we can use these new tools and how we can prepare for a cookieless world. The session today will of course be recorded, so you'll be able to watch again afterwards as on-demand content. Also, throughout the session, if you have any questions, if you can go onto the Slido and put in the code that's on the screen, we'll go through them at the end of the session. So to begin with today, I will run through how we can prepare for a cookieless future, and then we will introduce Ashley to chat through her experience with the new data enrichment tools and how best to utilise them. So let's get started. So one of the main reasons that data building has become a hot topic is due to Google announcing that they are going to be phasing out cookies in 2022. This has actually since changed to 2023. So the main question, of course, is why does this matter for event marketing? Third-party cookies are the way ad platforms learned a user's preferences, which enabled us as marketers to create personalised ads across the entire ad network. However, there are other alternatives which we'll discuss today, and one way to prepare for this is to run campaigns that will build your first-party data. So as mentioned, in order to prepare for the phase out of cookies, it is really beneficial to run data building campaigns to generate as much first-party data as possible. We can do this across search, display, video, and social. The type of ads we would run are lead generation forms on Facebook and LinkedIn, and this can also be done on search and display now. We can also use any white paper or post-show downloads that you can use to gather data. It is important to think of the consumer as they need a reason to give you their data and receive something in return that will benefit them. So after we've built that first party data, there's new data enrichment tools that we are really excited about using. So the first one we're looking at today is Bombora. So Bombora collects data about web users' observed behaviour, specifically web content consumption. This then provides insights into their interests, and from this we can indicate potential intent to take an action. So as a result, Bombora can help you find users in market to exhibit or attend your event. And Bombora works by gathering data from over 2.7 million companies. And we can also create custom segments if required. The next tool that we're super excited about is LiveRamp. So LiveRamp is a data connectivity platform that improves the usage of first-party data. So how it works is it takes the data and ingests it and improves the match rate. You can then activate the data through various partners like Google Ads, DV360, and social networks. It has over 300 destination partners. So we definitely recommend using LiveRamp once you've collected all that first party data, as the match rate can go from 10% to 70%. So now we'd like to introduce Ashley, who is our Google team lead and expert on all the new data enrichment tools. So hi, Ashley.
Hello, I'm super excited to be chatting to you today about data gathering and non-cookie options.
Great. So the first question that I think will benefit everyone listening today is, how long should you run data gathering campaigns for?
Yeah, great question. So in short, we would say always. Changes to first-party data means you'll need to do more upfront planning than previously. One strategy is keeping campaigns running throughout the full year if you can. By reaching new users beyond our very targeted event objective campaigns is a really effective strategy to grow your event by later retargeting these users who have recently engaged with your brand with a stronger event-focused message such as delegate registration. Or alternatively, we would recommend running data gathering campaigns ahead of starting your main campaign. So for example, for visitor registration, around 16 to 12 weeks out, if you're starting visitor registration around 12 weeks. It's important to run any data gathering campaigns earlier to allow time to collect that data and nurture your audience. when you think about it, data like your audience is dynamic, and it's better to consistently collect new data when you need it.
Okay, great. So from that then, so what happens if you're running the always on throughout the year, but you also want to run something like BizProm or XProm at the same time? Will that compete with the audiences? Like, will the audiences compete with each other?
No, so we would recommend setting these up with different audiences so there wouldn't be any conflict. So we always kind of recommend targeting your campaigns based on objectives. So the one for data building would have a different audience to what you would be targeting for visitor registration, for example.
Great, okay, thanks. So moving on to the tools then, so do you actually see a difference in the match rate when using the onboarding tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So so far we've seen really good uplift. So it really depends on the data that you're using. So for example, you can expect a greater match rate from personal emails versus business emails, for example. And the match rate is increased because of the enriching from using a single identifier to match a higher percentage of the people using large data sets that the tools have access to. So for example, Sainsbury's or Bank of America. In general, we're seeing an increase from around 10 to 30% on the platform of up to 60 to 70% when using onboarding platforms like LiveRamp that you spoke about earlier. But that said as well, we're also seeing much higher match rates from the platform, suggesting that they're also enriching their own capabilities as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's great to hear that that's increasing there as well then. So, and what would you say is the impact for a better, or what is the impact of a better match rate?
So a better match rate essentially means you're able to reach more of your target segment. For example, if you've got 10,000 emails with a 10% match rate, you're missing out on a huge chunk of these users. So one of the benefits of using tools for onboarding is that they enrich the data and allow you to reach a much larger pool of your audience, as well as reaching a larger pool of your seed audience. You can also expect increased performance from your similar audiences. And this is something, similar audiences is something we're seeing work really well. So if you can get even better performance from your seeds and even better performance from your similar audiences as a result of using onboarding tools.
Okay, and is that the same then for like Facebook lookalike audiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So any of the platforms that we use, so for example, Google uses similar audiences and Facebook lookalikes works in the same way. So the better the seeds audience, the more likely your similar or lookalike audience is going to be at performing as well. So essentially, the higher the match rate, the greater the reach across both types of ad targeting. Sorry.
Okay, thanks for that. And so how can then event marketers and ourselves better use that intent data?
Yeah, so currently they're on online advertising such as programmatic, display and social works in three ways. Firstly, you have your contextual ads where a system looks at the page you're visiting and shows you ads based on its context. So for example, if you're browsing a website about brand licensing, you might want to see an ad for a licensing event. And second, you've got your interest base. So what you like is inferred from your browsing, and then you see ads related to this. So for example, you might see an ad for an interior design event because you like interior design. And then of course you've got remarketing, for example, that event ad that follows you around the internet encouraging you to attend. So by getting rid of third-party cookies, we'll have different impacts on each of these types of advertising. And it's here that we're seeing one of the biggest impacts will be around is interest-based advertising. And Google is proposing a system called Federated Learning of Cohorts, or FLoC for short, that we'll be able to use. FLoC works by placing users in groups with other people that infers might have the same interests as. So it's still based on browsing histories, but rather than sending to third-party cookies, the browser looks at your history and decides what you may be interested in. There's then third-party data vendors such as Bambora that you spoke about that allow you to identify business-to-business organisations that indicate they might have an interest in your industry event or your offering. And as you mentioned as well, Bambora can actually find users in the market to exhibit or attend your event using intent data from activities over 2.7 million companies. So a really huge opportunity there. And the third way you can make better use of the intent data is through Google Ads and platform custom intent audiences, which allow you to reach an audience that is actively researching a related industry or likely to be on certain websites.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, that third way you mentioned there, is that like competitor targeting then?
It can be. So that's one of the strategies that you can use custom intent for. Yeah.
Great, thanks. So yeah, I think the main question as well that we want to go over is, should event marketers be worried about the death of cookies, do you think?
So in short, no. There are lots of other alternatives. Cookies have been around since the 1990s, if you can believe it. However, research has actually showed that up to 48% of users in certain industries are opting out of cookies. So by adopting first-party data and intent-based targeting, we'll be able to overcome such limitations. Measuring conversions is one of the main areas that we'll see things start to get a little bit tricky with the removal of third-party cookies. So it's important to make sure that you're tracking conversions as accurately as possible to see the benefit of all channels and the role that they play in that path to conversion. With the global site tag in place, we'll be able to use enhanced conversions with making tracking conversions across the likes of search and YouTube a lot more accurate. Also, proactively using AI-based products and features like smart bidding, dynamic search ads, smart display, customer match, and performance max campaigns will make the most of first-party data and user intent signals to optimize in real time and deliver better results, and helping you to communicate with your target audience in an effective way. Both Facebook and LinkedIn also use campaign budget optimization, which is powered by machine learning, and that allows you to prioritize your performance-based metrics, such as conversions. So while, it's quite a scary concept, moving away from cookies, there are lots of great opportunities for event marketers running paid events campaigns with first-party data and intent.
Great, thanks, Ashley. So yeah, so to sum up then, the top 3 takeaways from this that will help event organisers going forward to use these tools and to prepare for a cookieless future is, number 1, decent quality content that makes it worthwhile for your users to give their first-party data. So that is really key if we are running any first-party data campaigns. The second one was to think about your audience segmentation by objective. So consider things like any crossover and the size of these segments as well. And the third one being, start planning now and do the research to find out the right tools that will benefit you. So if you have any ideas in mind, just to start planning that right away now and start doing your research will really help going forward. So now we're just going to move on to the Slido. If you've got any questions, we'll be able to hopefully see them on the screen. So great. So the first one we have here is, what is the best content to use for data building campaigns?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we would recommend softer objectives. So if you think about it, we're reaching brand new users. So things like a agenda download or perhaps a conference brochure are good value propositions for data building. It's important that the value is there for these users. So if you think about it, why should they submit their details? Have a think about the customer journey and what stage they're at and what solutions they might be looking for at this stage. That's what I would say.
Great, thanks. Yeah, that's really useful. So, and another question we have here is, what other intent signals can we utilize?
Yeah, so there are other intent signals such as demographics or firmographics or technographic signals that are also available in the platforms. Event signals such as attending an industry event or action-based insights such as targeting users visiting certain sections of your website that we can also utilize on paid advertising.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ashley. And another question we have here is, how many emails do you need to onboard to these tools? Do we know that yet?
Yeah, so it will depend on the platforms that you're using, but we would recommend a minimum of 1,000 emails as a kind of starting point. So, and again, obviously, the better match that you're getting from the platforms is great. So that will be increased, but if we think about it, the higher the number, the better. But yeah, a minimum we would recommend is 1,000, but it will vary per platform.
Great. Okay, thank you. And I don't think there's any more questions come up. If you do have any after the session, then feel free to send Ashley or myself an email with any questions as well. I'll just wait a couple of seconds to see if there's any more come up. Great. So thanks so much to everyone who's joined today. If you wouldn't mind just taking a couple of minutes to tell us what you thought of the session, we'd really appreciate any feedback that you have.